The void between stars was never truly empty. Even in the deepest dark, something always watched. On the edge of the Series 7 ring system, where ice shards spun like forgotten memories, a small ship drifted. It was barely more than a pod, patched with scrap metal and hope. Inside, Lila sat curled against the cold wall, her breath fogging the air in short, shallow clouds. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted the thermal wrap around the small creature in her lap. Its name was Nyx, and it was all she had left. Nyx was no bigger than a house cat, but his scales shimmered like oil on water, shifting between deep violet and silver depending on the light. Right now there was almost no light at all. The ship's main power had failed hours ago. Only the emergency battery kept the oxygen recycler humming, and even that sound was growing weaker. Lila knew she didn't have much time. She had run from the outer colonies when the Federation declared her kind extinct. They had burned the archives, erased the records, and hunted down every whisper of Alari blood. Lila had hidden for years, moving from station to station. Always alone, always careful. But Nyx had grown restless. His dreams, shared through their bond, had shown her a place beyond the known sectors. A place where someone might still remember. That someone was Kale Voss. No one knew if he was real or just a story told by smugglers over cheap synth whiskey. They said he lived on the edge of Titan Ridge, commanding a ship that moved like a ghost through sensor nets. They said he never took passengers, never answered distress calls, and never lost a fight. But they also said he kept his word. And right now, that was all Lila had to hold on to. With numb fingers, she tapped the last working console. The screen flickered to life, showing a broken image of her own face. Pale, tired, eyes too wide with fear. She ignored it and opened a narrow band channel. No encryption, no routing tricks. Just a raw signal sent straight into the dark. "This is Lila of the 7th ring," she whispered, voice rough from disuse. "My ship is failing. I have no weapons, no cargo, only myself and my companion. I am not Federation. I am not Rebel. I am lost. If you're out there, Kale Voss, I ask only for shelter. Not for long, just until the storm passes." She didn't say which storm, the one outside or the one chasing her through time and blood. She sent the message and leaned back, closing her eyes. Nyx stirred in her lap, letting out a soft chime-like sound. It wasn't a purr. It was a question. She stroked his head gently. "We did all we could," she murmured. "Now we wait." Minutes stretched into hours. The temperature dropped. Frost crept along the inside of the viewport. Lila wrapped herself tighter around Nyx, sharing what little warmth she had. She thought of the old songs her mother used to sing. Songs about stars that remembered names, about dragons who carried souls between worlds. She hadn't believed them then. Now she wasn't sure what to believe. Just as her eyelids grew heavy, the console beeped. A single tone. Clean. Strong. Her eyes snapped open. The screen showed an incoming signal, unmarked, untraceable, but powerful. It wasn't Federation. It wasn't Rebel. It was something else entirely. A voice came through, low and calm, with the rough edge of someone who spoke only when necessary. "Identify your companion." Lila's heart pounded. She swallowed hard. "His name is Nyx. He's..." Mine, a pause. Longer this time. "Then describe him." She hesitated. Revealing Nyx's true nature could mean death, but lying might mean the same. She took a breath. "He's small, scaled. His eyes glow when he's awake. He doesn't eat food. He feeds on static, on starlight, on silence. He's been with me since I was a child." Another silence. Then, "Open your external cam." She tapped the command. The ship's outer camera activated, showing the endless swirl of ice and rock around her. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, far in the distance, a shape emerged from the ring's shadow. It was massive, angular, built for speed and stealth. No lights, no markings. Just a silhouette against the stars. The voice returned. "Hold position. Do not move. Do not speak. Do not power up anything." The ship grew closer. Lila held her breath. Nyx lifted his head, his eyes flickering to life. Soft violet pulses that matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. She felt his fear, his hope, his ancient knowing. He remembered this ship, or something like it. When the freighter was close enough to block out the stars, a docking clamp extended from its belly. Magnetic seals locked onto her pod with a quiet thud. Then a voice came through the comms again, softer this time. "Welcome aboard, Lila." The bay door opened. Warm light spilled into the darkness. Lila didn't move at first. She looked down at Nyx. He blinked once slowly as if giving her permission. She stood, legs stiff from cold, and carried him toward the airlock. Inside the freighter, the air was dry and warm. The walls were lined with old tech, some human, some not. Cables ran along the floor like roots. The lights were dim but steady. A figure stood at the far end of the bay, tall and lean, wearing a worn jacket and boots scuffed from 1,000 landings. His face was shadowed, but his eyes were sharp, watching her not with suspicion but with something like recognition. He didn't ask her name. He didn't ask where she'd come from. He just nodded toward a corridor. "Your quarters are ready. Food's in the galley, hot water in the shower. Rest." Lila took a step forward, then another. Nyx made a soft sound almost like a sigh. She looked back at her broken pod, floating empty now in the bay. It had carried her this far, but she knew deep in her bones that her journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. Cale turned and walked away without another word. Lila followed, not because she trusted him, but because she had nowhere else to go. And maybe, just maybe, he knew that too. As the door to her new room hissed shut behind her, she set Nyx down on the narrow bunk. He curled into a tight ball, his scales dimming to a soft gray. She sank onto the edge of the bed, exhaustion finally catching up. Outside, the freighter turned, engines humming to life, and slipped back into the dark. Somewhere far behind them, Federation scouts would be scanning the rings, searching for a ghost, but they wouldn't find her. Not here, not with him. For the first time in years, Lila let herself believe she might survive, and that was enough for now. Days passed aboard the freighter like slow breaths in deep sleep. Lila kept to herself, moving only between her room, the small wash chamber, and the far end of the mess hall when she knew the crew would be elsewhere. She ate quickly, spoke to no one, and always kept Nyx close, tucked beneath her coat or curled in the crook of her arm. The crew noticed, of course. They were not unkind, but they were cautious. Strangers did not last long on Titan Ridge, and those who came seeking Kyle Voss usually carried more than just baggage. Nyx remained quiet, his usual soft chimes and flickers reduced to near silence, but Lila felt his unease. It hummed beneath her skin, a low vibration that matched the ship's engine rhythm. Something was coming. She could not say how she knew, only that the air felt heavier, charged like before a storm. Cale did not speak to her again after that first night. He moved through the ship like a shadow, giving orders in a voice too calm for the chaos of deep space. Sometimes Lila would catch him watching her from a distance, his eyes unreadable. He never approached, never asked questions. But once, she found a clean set of clothes outside her door. Another time, a protein bar wrapped in plain foil. Small things, silent things. She accepted them without thanks, but she remembered. Then, on the 7th night, the alarm sounded. Not the soft chime of a system warning, but the sharp, urgent blare of an intruder alert. Lila sat up instantly. Nyx already on his feet, eyes blazing violet. The lights in her room dimmed to red. Through the thin walls, she heard boots pounding down the corridor, voices sharp with tension. "Raiders!" someone shouted. 3 skiffs. They're boarding through Bay 4. Lila's blood turned cold. Federation raiders did not use skiffs. These were scavengers. Mercenaries who stripped ships bare and left bones in the void. They would not care who she was. They would take what they wanted and burn the rest. She grabbed Nyx and pressed against the wall beside the door. Outside, the corridor echoed with shouts and the sharp crack of energy fire. A crew member stumbled past, clutching a bleeding arm. Another dragged a heavy crate across the floor, trying to block a junction. Then silence. Too sudden, too complete. Lila held her breath. Nyx's glow dimmed, then flared once, bright, urgent. She understood. They were close. The door to her room slid open without warning. 2 figures stood there, clad in mismatched armor, faces hidden behind cracked visors. One held a plasma cutter, still smoking. The other leveled a pulse rifle at her chest. "You," the taller one growled. "Hands up." "Pet stays." Lila did not move. Nyx let out a sound unlike anything she had ever heard, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to bend the air itself. The raiders flinched, but only for a second. "Cute," the one with the rifle sneered. "Now move." That was when Nyx leapt. He was small but fast, faster than sight. One moment he was in Lila's arms. The next he was a blur of violet light. The rifle clattered to the floor as the raider screamed, clutching his eyes. The other swung the plasma cutter wildly. But Nyx twisted midair, his tail lashing out like a whip of charged energy. The man staggered back, crashing into the wall. Lila did not wait. She darted past them, heart hammering, and ran down the corridor toward the ship's core. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get away, had to hide Nix before they realized what he truly was. But it was too late. From the mess hall ahead, another group of raiders emerged, led by a woman with a scar across her throat and a scanner in her hand. She stopped dead when she saw Lila. "Well, well," she said, voice raspy. "The ghost girl. We've been looking for you." Lila froze. "I don't know what you mean." The woman tapped her scanner. It beeped rapidly, its screen flashing with symbols Lila recognized. Illyri glyphs. Ancient. Forbidden. "Your little lizard isn't just a pet, is he?" the woman said, stepping closer. "He's a key, and we've got buyers who'll pay more than you've ever seen for a live Illyri construct." Lila's stomach dropped. They knew. Somehow they knew. Nix growled, low and dangerous. The air around him shimmered like heat rising from desert stone. The raiders raised their weapons, but none fired. They were waiting. Watching. Then, from behind Lila, a voice cut through the tension. "You're on my ship." Kale stood at the far end of the hall, arms loose at his sides, no weapon in sight. But his presence alone made the raiders tense. The scarred woman turned slowly. "Voss," she said, "we didn't come for you. Just the girl and her pet. Walk away and we'll leave your crew in peace." Kyle took a step forward. Then another. "This ship doesn't have guests, only crew. And you're neither." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Last chance." Kale didn't answer. He simply raised his hand and the lights went out, not just the corridor lights. Every system. Total darkness. In that blackness, only Nix glowed. Violet light pulsed from his body, steady and strong. Time seemed to slow. The raiders shouted, disoriented. One fired blindly, energy bolts sizzled past Lila's ear. But Nix moved like thought itself, darting between them, his presence distorting the very air. Then just as suddenly the lights returned. The raiders were gone. Not dead, not wounded. Simply gone. Their weapons lay on the floor. Their boots, even their armor, as if they had been unraveled and scattered across seconds. Lila stared, breathless. Nix landed softly on her shoulder, his glow fading to a gentle shimmer. He was trembling. Kale walked over, his expression unreadable. He looked at Nix, then at Lila. He didn't ask what had happened. He didn't need to. That night, after the ship was secured and the damage assessed, Kale left something outside Lila's door. Not clothes this time, not food. A small data chip sealed in a plain casing. She picked it up, heart pounding. Nix watched from the bed, eyes half closed but alert. She inserted the chip into the room's reader. A star map appeared, faint, old, marked with coordinates she hadn't seen since childhood. And beneath it, a single word, home. Lila sat down slowly, the weight of that word pressing against her ribs. It wasn't just a place. It was a memory. A promise. A grave. Nix crawled into her lap and rested his head against her hand. She stroked his scales, feeling the quiet hum of his presence. He remembered too. Kale had not asked. He had not demanded answers. He had simply given her a choice. Stay hidden, or go back. And for the first time since she fled the colonies, Lila knew what she had to do. She would return to Vera. She would face what waited beneath the ice. And she would not go alone. The freighter dropped out of warp near the edge of a dead system. No signals, no traffic, just a single moon hanging in the black, wrapped in ice and silence. Vera. Lila stood at the viewport in the observation blister, her breath fogging the glass. Nix sat on her shoulder, scales dull gray, eyes half-lidded but watchful. He had not spoken, not with words, not with sound, but his thoughts brushed against hers like wind through dry grass. He remembered this place, not as it was now, but as it had been. Alive. Singing, Kale joined her without a word. He carried 2 packs, one slung over each shoulder. Thermal gear. Oxygen recyclers. Tools she did not recognize but trusted anyway. He set one down at her feet. "Surface is -200, he said. "Suit up. We've got 6 hours before the ice storms return." Lila nodded. She did not ask how he knew the weather patterns of a forgotten moon. She did not ask why he was coming with her. Some things did not need words. They suited up in silence. The suits were old but functional, lined with heat coils that hummed softly. Nix curled into a pouch on Lila's chest, his small body warm against her skin. When the airlock cycled open, the cold hit like a wall. The sky above was empty. No stars visible through the thick atmospheric haze, only the pale glow of the distant sun, weak and red. They walked for hours across the frozen plain. The ground crunched underfoot, brittle and ancient. Lila followed no path, no map. She walked by memory, by the pull in her bones. Nix stirred occasionally, his head peeking out to scan the horizon. Once he let out a soft chime, and Lila changed direction without hesitation. Finally, they reached it. A ridge of black stone, half buried in ice. It looked natural at first glance, but the angles were too sharp, the lines too precise. Lila knelt and brushed snow from a flat surface. Beneath it, glyphs glowed faintly. Ilari script, worn but still legible. Her fingers traced the symbols, and a shiver ran through her that had nothing to do with the cold. "This is it," she whispered. Kale stood back, watching. He did not touch the stone, did not speak. He knew this was not his place. Lila closed her eyes and began to sing. The words were old, older than human tongues. They came from somewhere deep inside her, rising like breath from a long-drowned lung. The ice around them groaned. Cracks spread across the surface, glowing blue from within. The glyphs beneath her fingers flared to life, bright enough to cast shadows. Then the ground opened. A staircase spiraled down into darkness, lit by soft pulses of violet light. The air that rose from it was warm, dry, and carried the scent of ozone and something else, something like memory. Lila stepped forward. Kale followed. The passage led deep into the moon's crust. Walls curved like living bone, embedded with veins of crystal that pulsed in time with Lila's heartbeat. Nix emerged fully now, perched on her shoulder, eyes wide and bright. He chirped softly and the crystals answered. At the bottom of the stairs they found the chamber. It was vast, a dome of smooth stone and light. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it rested a sphere of swirling silver mist. Lila approached slowly, drawn by a force she could not name. When she reached out, the mist parted like water, revealing a core of pure light. And then, the memories came. Not as thoughts, not as images, as truth. She saw her mother standing here, younger, stronger, placing a child, her, into a stasis pod. She saw the sky above Vera burning as Federation warships descended. She saw the Ilari elders activating the final protocol, scattering their essence into the stars, hiding their legacy in bloodlines and beasts. She saw Nix, not as a pet, but as a guardian, bound to her soul before she could walk. She was not just Ilari, she was the last. Nix leapt from her shoulder and landed on the pedestal. He touched the core with his snout, and the chamber filled with sound, a chorus of voices, ancient and powerful. The walls shimmered, revealing murals of star maps, battles, births, and deaths, the history of a people who had walked among galaxies long before humans crawled from the sea. Kale stood in the doorway, silent, watching her unravel and rebuild herself in the light. When it was over, Leela turned to him, tears frozen on her cheeks. "They erased us," she said. "But they missed this, they missed me." Kale nodded. "Now what?" She looked at Nix, then at the core. "Now I finish what they started." She placed both hands on the pedestal. The light surged, wrapping around her arms, her chest, her face. Nix's body glowed brighter, his form flickering between small companion and something vast, something winged and terrible and beautiful. The chamber trembled. Deep beneath the ice, something woke. Kale stepped back, not in fear, but in respect. He had brought her here not to hide, but to remember. And now she remembered everything. The war was not over. It had only been sleeping. And Lila, last daughter of the Ilari, would be the one to wake it. The sky above Vera split open like a wound. Federation dreadnoughts descended through the thin atmosphere, their hulls black and seamless, engines humming with the kind of power that bent space. They had tracked the energy surge from the ruins. They knew something had awakened, and they would not let it live. Aboard the freighter, Kale's crew scrambled. Alarms blared, but no one shouted. They had fought before. They would fight again. But this time was different. This time they were not running. They were holding ground. Lila stood on the observation deck, Nyx coiled at her feet. Her eyes reflected the dreadnought's approach. Cold, sharp, unblinking. She wore no armor, carried no weapon. She did not need them. The ruin had given her back what was hers. Not just memory, not just power. Purpose. Kale entered the room, pulling on a flight vest. "They're locking targeting arrays," he said. "Shields won't hold more than 2 passes." Lila did not look at him. "They are not here for your ship. They'll burn the moon to glass to be sure," he replied. "You know that." She finally turned. Her gaze was calm but heavy. "Then we stop them before they fire." Kale studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll draw their fire. You get to the core. You cannot fly into that," she said. "I've flown into worse," he answered, and lived. Before she could argue, he was gone, boots echoing down the corridor toward the cockpit. The freighter shuddered as engines roared to life. Outside, the ship lifted from the ice, banking hard toward the lead dreadnought. Lila watched it go, heart tight. Then she turned to Nyx. "It is time." Nyx uncoiled. His body began to change. Scales thickened, glowing brighter with each breath. His limbs stretched, wings unfolding like storm clouds given form. In moments, he was no longer the small creature who slept in her lap. He was a dragon of Aleri legend. Massive, radiant, eyes burning with starlight. Lila climbed onto his back without hesitation. Nyx leapt into the sky, wings beating once, twice, and then they were soaring, past the ice ridges, past the freighter's trail, straight toward the heart of the fleet. The Federation opened fire. Energy bolts streaked across the sky, but Nyx moved like thought itself, weaving through the barrage with impossible grace. Lila held on, not with fear, but with focus. She reached into the bond between them, into the ancient current that flowed from her blood to his fire. Together they sang. The sound was not heard with ears. It vibrated through metal, through circuits, through the very atoms of the dreadnoughts. One ship shuddered, its hull rippling like water. Then it folded inward, collapsing into a sphere of light before vanishing entirely. The other ships faltered. Comms erupted in panic. Targeting systems failed. Engines stalled. But the lead dreadnought held firm. It was older, reinforced with Aleri tech stolen long ago. Its captain knew what she was, and he would not let her reach the core. Nyx banked sharply as a railgun round screamed past. Lila gritted her teeth. She could feel the dreadnought's defenses. Layers of stolen shielding reverse-engineered from Aleri ruins just like this one. They would not break easily, but they were not perfect. She closed her eyes and reached deeper, past the song, past the bond, into the memory of the ruin. The core had shown her how the Aleri built their ships, not with steel but with will, not with engines but with harmony, and disharmony could unravel them. She began to sing again. This time the song was not gentle. It was sharp, precise. A key turned in a lock that should never have been forced open. The dreadnought groaned. Seams split along its hull. Lights flickered and died. Inside, systems overloaded, melting into slag. The captain sent one final command before his bridge dissolved into light. Self-destruct. Lila's eyes snapped open. Nyx down. The dragon folded his wings and dove, streaking toward the surface just as the dreadnought exploded. The shockwave ripped through the sky, shattering the remaining ships like glass. Fire bloomed across the atmosphere, then faded into silence. On the ground, the freighter landed hard, one wing torn, engines smoking. Kale stumbled out, face streaked with soot, eyes scanning the sky. Then he saw them. Nyx landed gently on the ice, shrinking as he touched down, returning to his smaller form. Lila slid off his back, legs shaking but steady. She walked toward Kale, snow swirling around her boots. "They're gone," she said. He nodded. For now. She looked back at the sky, now empty except for drifting ash. "They will send more." "They always do. Then we'll be ready," he said. Nyx chirped softly, curling around her ankles. The ruin behind them pulsed once, a final breath before falling silent again. The Aleri war beasts remained buried, their time not yet come. But the message had been sent. The last daughter lived, and she was not alone. The ruins of Vera crumbled slowly, as if the moon itself exhaled after holding its breath for centuries. Ice shifted. Stone cracked. The chamber beneath the surface sealed itself once more, its light fading into memory. Lila stood on the highest ridge, watching the last of the ash fall from the sky like gray snow. Nick sat beside her, small again, his scales dulled to a soft silver. He rested his head on her boot, eyes half closed but content. The storm was over. For now. Cale approached from below, his steps quiet on the frozen ground. He carried 2 packs, one his, one hers. The freighter was repaired enough to fly, though it would never be pretty again. Nothing worth keeping ever was. Cruise aboard, he said. They're waiting. Lila did not turn. Do they know where we're going? No, he said. But they trust me. And now some of them trust you. She smiled faintly. It was not a big smile, but it was real. That was enough. She knelt and wrapped her arms around Nick's. He made a soft sound, almost like a purr, and pressed his forehead to hers. No words passed between them. None were needed. They had walked through fire and memory together. They would keep walking. When she stood, she took the pack from Cale and slung it over her shoulder. Thank you, she said. He shook his head. You didn't come for thanks. You came for a chance, and you gave me more than that, she replied. They walked back to the ship in silence. The crew did not cheer. They did not ask questions. They simply nodded as Lila passed, some with respect, others with quiet awe. She had faced the dreadnoughts not with guns, but with song. That was something they would not forget. Inside the freighter, the air was warm, familiar. Lila found her old room unchanged, though someone had left a fresh thermal blanket on the bunk. She set Nix down, and he immediately curled into the corner, already drifting toward sleep. The battle had taken more from him than it showed. Cale lingered in the doorway. We're heading for the outer spiral, he said. There's a signal out there, faint, old, not human. Lila looked at him. Alari, maybe, he said. Or something like it. Either way, it's worth checking. She nodded. That was all. As the engines hummed to life and the ship lifted from the ice, Lila sat by the viewport once more. Vera shrank behind them, becoming just another pale dot in the endless dark. But she knew it would not be forgotten. The ruin was safe. The legacy remained, and she carried its echo in her blood. Nix opened one eye and chirped softly. She reached down and stroked his head. Outside, stars stretched ahead like a path only she could see. Cale entered the cockpit and took the pilot seat. He did not look back, but she knew he was aware of her presence. They had not spoken much since the battle, but words were no longer necessary. They understood each other in the way people do when they have faced the end together and chosen to keep going. The freighter slipped into warp, folding space like a page in an old book. Ahead lay unknown systems, hidden signals, whispered rumors of other survivors. Maybe another ruin. Maybe another guardian. Maybe nothing at all. But it did not matter. What mattered was that they were moving, that they were free, that for the first time in lifetimes Lila was not running, not hiding, not waiting to die. She was living. She had offered herself for shelter, broken and alone, drifting through the rings of Series 7 with nothing but a small dragon and a fading hope. And Cale Voss, the ghost of Titan Ridge, had not turned her away. He had not used her. He had not feared her. He had given her a life worth living. And as the stars blurred into streaks of light outside the viewport, Lila closed her eyes and let herself believe that the war was not just about survival. It was about what came after. About building something new from the ashes of the old. About finding others like her. Or helping those who were lost. Or simply flying through the dark with someone who saw her not as a weapon, not as a relic, but as a person. Nick sighed in his sleep. A sound like wind through ancient trees. Lila smiled again, small and quiet. The journey was far from over. But for now they were safe, and that was enough.